I do feel like there's an internal age. Because it's kind of identify us, and then after that, they're like, just really older than that.
Oh, yeah. 27. Just like, they want the curtains shut because it's really glaring. Thanks. Okay, intrepid travelers. Intrepid travelers. This is time to talk about our practice, the Dharma. So, what's on your mind and how is it going? Yeah, Diane.
My understanding is that the Buddha at one point had killed someone who was planning to sink a boat which had 500 merchants on it. And so in order to halt the bad karma from developing further of the man who was going to do this killing, he was killed. And I wonder how that relates to what we saw in Syria this week. Because my understanding is that we tried to destroy a military airstrip so that no more innocent people could be killed from that. So I wonder how that, what parallel you see there or don't see.
So there is a story about.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, this is part of repeating it. Okay, setting the stage. Diane's question involved first a story about the Buddha in a past life before he was Shakyamuni. He was on a ship. He was a great bodhisattva at the time. So his intentions, whatever he was doing, would be compassionate and ending suffering. And there was a person on the ship who, it was full of riches, the ship, and there were 500 merchants on there with many riches. And this person had decided, I don't know how he was going to carry this out, but to kill all of them and take all the riches. Now the Buddha, being a top-level bodhisattva, could see thoughts and knew this person, that his intention was to do this. And the Buddha, out of compassion, and this is going to be the key to your question, Diane was asking, how would that killing that person to save the others relate at all to what this bombing that just happened in Syria, like to supposedly stop Assad from more killing, more using of this poison gas. So the top-level Bodhisattva Buddha, with total compassion for everyone. See, this is the key difference. You have to have compassion for every single being, and the motive needs to be nothing but compassion. No self-gain, no political anything, no fear. It's just pure. So this Buddha took on the karma of killing the murderer, the man who intended to murder. He did that out of full compassion for those who were about to be killed, but he also total compassion for that one who was about to take on the karma of murdering. Now, even when a bodhisattva does this, they experience some karma, and he knew it. It's kind of like, now, it's kind of like, I might go to the hell realms for this, but I'm willing. I'm willing to take that on to keep you from going to to the Herron. Now, that's quite a different motivation than our government going into Syria. You know, there's so many mixed motivations, intentions, policies. I don't even pretend I could possibly, although there's many editorials saying it was for this, it was for that, it's going to turn out like this, it's going to turn out like that. Well, good luck projecting all that and sorting all that. We're not bodhisattvas. I can't even tell during a day when I say something to someone like this right now. I have no idea. I could be taken on some really intense karma by mistaking the story or forgetting what my teachers told me about that story or twisting it a bit. The thing I can be clear about is my motivation. My motivation is clear to me. It's to assist in the end of suffering of everyone, people sitting here, myself, whoever. That's the only thing I can be clear about. So things not done with that clear, and it's not even pure from this side because I still feel there's a self here who's being really good. But, if we don't even get to that clear motivation, even though I'm still confused about self and others, which is a much deeper level, if we don't even have the gross clarity of, I really intend to be a good human and help end suffering, I doubt that the pilots, the president, everyone had that clarity. We wish that for them, but so that's how I would talk about the two. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I can see it if I really try to drop the politics and the Trump and all that stuff as a wish to prevent more suffering of innocent people and as a wish to stop the buildup of bad karma. And so I question whether we have to wait until something is 100% pure before we act. Because I think, getting halfway there or 3/4 of the way there with a good motivation is better than doing nothing.
Yeah, we can't know someone else's motivation, though. We can barely clarify our own.
Well, we could see what the motivation was in dropping chemical weapons on
Really?
children. Yes, we could see the motivation was to kill them. I think that was pretty clear.
So when someone...
Just like the Buddha saw that the guy's motivation was to steal the money.
Yeah, but that's the bodhisattva looking at the situation. I'm not that confident in my... I mean, of course, you can see this looks like suffering, this thing.
Yeah.
But
my question is just, how much total clarity, understanding, bodhisattva view do we have to have before we act in something?
Well,
that's
we
my
just
question.
Thank you. So the key question is how much clarity do we have to have before we act to end some suffering? Well, we just do our best. We just do our best in each situation. There's no black and white, like 75%, 50%. You just do your best in the moment. You can go out the door and someone's hitting a child on the sidewalk or, driving a car recklessly. In that moment, you have to decide. It's so complex. It's so hard to do something effective. It is really difficult. And it is so hard to do something that does not add to the confusion or add to the suffering or enhance the suffering or make it worse. But, we do our practice on the cushion, our practice off the cushion, and we do our best. You know, I mean, that's all I can say. What are other thoughts, Deborah?
Well, this is a little different from that topic. I was gonna.
Loud so people can hear you. Thank you.
It's a different topic from
That's
this,
okay.
although this is a good question to ask. But Zopa, I really appreciated that prayer you read this morning.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about where it came from and anything else that you'd like to elaborate on. It was just very beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. This prayer I can answer really quickly because there's not a lot of information. Sometimes when you're doing the Dharma, things just come by. And this came from a longtime student of Venerable Thupten Chödrön in 2002 who translated this for the Dharma Friendship Foundation in Seattle. And there was a Lamrim class. The Lamrim is the Gelug's gradual path to awakening, topic after topic that you meditate on. And that's where this came from. And so Deborah at Break has kindly decided or offered to type up these 2 pages. You can see my thing is kind of a tad dirty.
Thank you.
And then send it out. So
You're saying it's a translation of
yes,
something?
of something called The First Scope, Trading Suffering for Purpose, a prayer to end harm in the world. So it's a prayer that reflects the stages of the Lamrim.
Do you
Yeah.
know the author of the
I
prayer?
don't. I just know the translator. Yeah. So
How would
Yeah,
we get
so
a
that-
copy? Sorry.
let's one at a time. So Salidra and then our friend here.
So, Diane, to your question, for me, there's questions about how much do we have to come from a place of a bodhisattva, and it's not really a percentage, and how to make that decision. To me, my sense is that any one of us right now would walk out this door, and if we saw somebody in pain and somebody hurting another person, we wouldn't sit and go, I wonder, let's see, should I do this? I don't think we would do that. I think that we move from our hearts and our wisdom in a place that's beyond the mind, and that it's a motivation that is bigger than the mind. And it's from that place that I think we become our true nature, which is to be a bodhisattva. Beyond right and wrong, it's like what Rumi says, there is a meadow, and I'll meet you there. And that meadow, that intuition, that ancient wisdom, whatever we want to call it, it propels us into right action.
Yeah, thank you. And then I think when I've moved from like that, I'm sometimes shocked at the consequences because they're not what I thought. It can end up more suffering. So it's just working exactly what you're saying, and then watching, because we still have our confusions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the watching is really key for me. I've just been noticing the last few weeks. I mean, I could have noticed it all my life, but I just kind of noticing a lot the last few weeks of times when I've so I've been in a situation with, kind of working with other people, and I just kind of, impulsively in a way, you might say, oh, it's from my heart. Well, actually, what it was from was a bad habit. Okay, so it was a reaction of because it reminded me of this historical wound or something, I reacted like this. And if I would have paused and reflected, I could have let that go and gotten to something more useful and authentic that was maybe a little bit in a better direction that I'm trying to head. And so, but I agree, so I think there is that in any moment, we do just have to do our best, and we either, whether it's action or whether it's action by not acting, which also has consequences.
Right.
So all of any shade of, you know, what we decide to do, or if we decide to stop and reflect, or if we decide to inquire further, or to wait and see about this or that, or whatever, or turn our backs, or, you know, walk away. I mean, all those options are there, and I think it's so important to like look and see, you know, experience by experience, look back and see how did things today unfold? How did I, you know, when I responded strongly to something, did that fit my overall intentions, or did it go in a different direction? And if it went in a different direction, can I figure out how that happened, or how I could avoid that in the future? I mean, I just think we're always working like that, and while I do believe that we do have this positive potential, each one of us, that is definitely the basis of the path. That's why we can be on the path and think that we might get somewhere with it. But I also think we I know I have a buildup of habits that few of which are good, a bunch of which kind of get in my way, and that a lot of it is like kind of letting go of some of those layers of reaction, old agendas that really are in contradiction to a more positive agenda that I'm trying to develop. So but at the same time, I agree with the idea that we walk out and something's happening, each of us will do our best, and that's what we should do. We should not say, well, I'm not perfect enough to do anything here today. I think I'll just go into a hole. And it's like, no, we do have to act.
And those people that, you know, that the person that's standing on a bridge and a plane goes down, and he goes in and he jumps down in this incredible place and does this thing. They say inevitably, I just did it. It was what I needed to do.
Yeah.
People do courageously
Yes, they do.
incredible things, right? So they don't contemplate. I think it's a little bit, different category perhaps.
I think one of the, this is such a good discussion, but one of the habits, Dora mentioned the word habit. One habit that Americans have is do something. Mm. And we see this in our government, like really, you've got to do something. Even you don't know what you should do, go bomb, we can look at that after 9/11. I always had this thought, what if we just, the first day, remember they shut down the airspace and it was so quiet? It was like no planes were allowed to fly. That made sense. And be very vigilant and set up protection. And then I was always hoping, now in this quiet, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about possible responses. But within a few days, we bombed, bombed Afghanistan. That's interesting. Who are they and what they have to do with it? But, you see, we have, what we're talking about here is that beautiful way we are in our deepest heart that you're pointing at, Salidra. And also, I think Diane pointing at that, our motivation to do good. That's one side, but the other side is our habit to do, to act, before we even understand what's going on. Now, I see this in myself a lot. And what I notice is when I act and watch, and it's good to just do it small times, like I'll move this cup over there, or I'll, just following my impulse. And then seeing, was that skillful? Did it help? Did it not? My Zen priest friend has a saying, the helping hand strikes again. And that's what we're talking about. I lived with her for about 7 months, and so many times the helping hand strikes again. And it's a joke, but it's what we're talking about, the movement without the wisdom. Compassion can be not so wise sometimes if it's not based in bodhisattva type wisdom. And most of the time we're stumbling along, and we do have to act at times, of course. But I find, especially lately, especially since this whole political turmoil, that when I refrain from acting, but I don't refrain from my presence, I try to bring more presence, more compassion, more being there. And then not acting. This has been quite interesting. Things unfold that are so surprising to me. Because I didn't say the thing. I didn't blurt out the thing. I didn't take the action. But rather I just tried to bring forth my sincere wish for the suffering in this moment to be over. And it's so interesting. It makes me see the I that wants to act, even wants to act being really good, really compassionate, but feels this urge to act. And just keeping my eye on that urge, like, well, maybe, Zopa, maybe you could just wait a minute. And sometimes in that minute, it can be amazing what someone says or does, and I'm just like, wow, I thought I had to do that, and didn't have to. Some kind of bigger wisdom rises outside of my eye. Just I heard you clearly.
I've been doing that repeatedly all last week, and nobody
Right.
was around to. I must have had a lot to say last week.
Yeah, because you're always clearing your throat, but now you're better.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
Yes, quite a few.
Well, good, share. Share some.
One of the thoughts that I have, listening to Dora, that there's a phrase that kind of sums things up that actually comes from the military, which is, in times of chaos, you descend to your training.
That's good. Yeah.
So whatever, for bad or for good, that you have cultivated in times of chaos, that's what will come up. So there's a corollary to this, which is during times of chaos, it's actually very difficult to train in a conscious way. And the corollary to that is, during times when it's not chaos, you should use all your time to train in things that you aspire to, because that is what will arise in the other times.
In the chaos, yeah.
So when I think about all our current situations, I see people descending to their habitual training, for better and for worse. And it's along the way, one of the things that I don't necessarily think that our culture is any more inclined to just do something than anybody else. And another thing that I think that all cultures have some tendency to seek for narrative certainty, and this is something that the more we go in that direction to make sure that we're feeling okay about ourselves by having a really good story that at least our friends will vigorously nod while we recite the story, the less humility we will have, the less ability we will have to look at the outcomes of the things that have taken place in accord with our narrative. We'll tend to say, well, yeah, that didn't turn out quite right, but and just the word but will then precede all kinds of stuff, another search for narrative certainty. And in this, I think there is less opportunity to actually train. So one of the things that I'm wary of in stories like the story of the Buddha in his previous life is I'm wary of the having that used kind of in service of a certain kind of clarity about things. I think it's very, very useful, though, to think of it in terms of an inquiry, to be able to open one's mind to possibilities. And in that story, the thing that you pointed out and emphasized is in this notion that the Bodhisattva actually looks into the circumstances and says, "This is going to be hell for me." Literally, that's just the way the story said it. And it's not free of consequences. It's not some kind of 100% moral purity that's available in this. It's not in that realm. There's there are devastating consequences if you really want to. We use the word hell rather casually. But if you really want to think about the meaning of that in terms of personal experience, this is not lightweight consequences. So part of this, I think, is really thinking about the depth of samsara, really understanding the depth of confusion, the depth of suffering, the pervasiveness of these patterns, and the power of the momentum of all the circumstances that we're in the midst of. So these are the kinds of things that come up for me when I step back from my own. I wouldn't say search, that's kind of too kind a word, my own declaration of narrative certainty. And anybody who catches me in a good moment can hear me wax eloquent about how definite I am about who's in the wrong, who's in the right, what's going to happen, all the rest. But I do try to take advantage to train in the small ways that I can when things are not totally chaotic. And that to me that's my opportunity. And I have a chance to test myself in small ways by living with someone who occasionally does not do things exactly the way I would expect or hope. And I have found the opportunities there to occasionally find that my training has actually opened up some way of relating to the situation that's less aggressive, less verbally violent, attenuates some of my worst habits in small ways. So I will leave it to Dora to say whether or not how much I've actually succeeded, but I've noticed small differences
the
myself.
break. But what Bill has shared in this whole conversation, there's a teacher who, Geshe Kelsang Dongdo, who helps run the Institute for Buddhist Dialectics in Dharamsala, and he has a bumper sticker about this, which is, "Don't puff up." The minute you puff up and you are so certain this is what happened, this is what they did, this is who's right, this is who's wrong. He just says the minute you pop up, you should throw a yellow flag in the air. And now I would add, and descend to your training, which is, I intend to be compassionate, I intend to bring loving kindness, descend to your training, just come on down, We're so sure. And the more sure, it's usually the big I that's puffing up and is actually quite aggressive, assertive. So it doesn't mean, the other ditch we can fall into is, oh, I'm not sure of anything, I'm just da-da. That's also the I. See, they're both the I. And the I has taken over both of them. I can never do anything because I can't be perfectly clear. That's an I too. So,
There's also narrative certainty in that.
yeah, I'm certain I'm adult. I'm certain I'm just completely incompetent. Yeah, so we just work through those.
And I'm certain that there's nothing really that anybody could say could be done that doesn't have some kind of downside. Therefore, I'm absolutely certain that doing nothing is perfect.
So we see the certainty is the difficulty. Holly and then Miriam.
About Dawn handling
Holly
as
and then the person behind her.
I didn't read
Yeah.
You mean Marcy.
I mean Marcy.
You were
God.
thinking of-
Holly. Marcy.
It just made me think of that I was thinking about the other ditch and I was thinking about your question too, Diane, but like in my own experience of being so avoidant conflict
Yeah.
and protecting the I against judgment, negative, retaliation, rejection, whatever,
Yeah.
lack of safety, that my pattern has been often to observe, think, process, observe, and not respond, And it was interesting because I had this situation on Saturday where I was in an AA meeting and a young woman got very upset and she left the meeting. And I sat there and she was in tears, And I sat there and I looked around to see first if anyone else would go after her, which is my, right? Like, wouldn't it be up to me, would it? The plane is crashing and someone else will do something about this, right? And nobody got up and I went to her and it was just really interesting because I was really like, somehow my training kicked in as far as my mindfulness. So I think I was able to stay really mindful with the whole thing. Like I was really mindful that maybe this might not be what she needs. It might not be beneficial, and I asked her if it was okay for me to be there. And, I don't know what the narrative is. At the moment, it felt helpful. It felt good. It felt connecting, I think, for both of us. And she went back to the meeting. But again, I was really mindful that I don't know how that affected her. She could be, who knows? I have no idea. But it was interesting in this conversation that thinking about those patterns and thinking about how so often we could fall in the other trap of just sort of thinking like we have to have this perfect knowledge and wisdom and compassion to do anything, and I feel like that can really be a impediment to growth or spiritual growth too, right? So I don't know, all good stuff. I love this conversation.
That's so beautiful because you descended to your training and the going in with some humility. The Chinese say the Hua, like you don't go into a place instantly asserting yourself. You go in, you observe for a while and try and match the Hua. In martial arts, I learned, someone's coming, you want to match their energy, not try and pounce on them or run away. Those are two things in the two ditches. I won't do anything. You're really watching and you're seeing, well, how fast are they coming? Then you join with them. Then you can influence. That's the jujitsu thing where then you can throw the person or the pattern. But you match the energy, otherwise you waste or you create more chaos. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Dylan.
Dylan?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
going to ask about the prayer, where we could get, you said it would be sent out.
Yeah.
How would we receive that?
You can talk with me at break and I'll
Okay.
connect you in. Okay. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, Pepper.
I just wanted to see if you could go over, like, how you would investigate the emptiness of an emotion, or, just like what that mental investigation kind of looks like.
Yeah, it's related to the 4 mindfulnesses. You can start, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of sensations, emotions, of mind, and of all phenomena. So you can look at those online or whatever. It's not different. The emotions arise in the mind, since everything does. But you can sit and feel it in your body is quite good. One of the ways to get at it in an authentic way is feel it in your body. Notice, oh, my fear always comes here. That's my fear will feel like some kind of something here. Anger often will be more heat, or dead cold. You just start noticing what's my body doing. It might be hands gripping or shoulders or whatever, so that's a way. But and then a set of thoughts come with the emotions. Instantly the story comes. I'm really sad, a narrative. So you notice that, oh, this is a narrative. It's not necessarily even describing the true thing. As soon as we stick that narrative on, we've gone a step beyond what's actually happening. So we try and come back to what's actually happening. That's why going on the body is quite good. Mm-hmm. And then just remembering as you're doing that, watch how it's not solid. Sadness moves through, anger moves through. There's just moment after moment. The sensations in the body are constantly changing. You go into the pain in your knee, and it's not one solid pain in my knee. I'm telling myself that. My knee is so sore, I'm probably never going to get it up again and never be able to walk, and on we go. But if you strip all that away and you just go, what is that? And you put your attention in there, wow, you start seeing it so many pieces. There's a pinging and a heat and there's my worry. You just do like that. Does that help? Okay. Miriam.
I think a lot of people have, returning to the previous topic, I think a lot of people have already talked about the wisdom of staying on the road and not going into either of the ditches. Mm-hmm. And I would say one of those ditches is idiot compassion, potentially, like being so compassionate that really what we're doing in some ways is protecting ourselves from negative karma by acting in a way that seems negative. Even though there may be benefits to that action. I guess what I'm referring to is the idea that what Diane and others have referred to, sometimes a bomb may be necessary in order to prevent further destruction. And I'm not in a position to decide if that bombing was necessary or not, but I don't want to completely dismiss the possibility that it might have been helpful. In a way that I don't understand at this point. For instance, when my ethnic and genetic forebears were in the Nazi death camps, they were praying for people to bomb the camps, knowing that they would die anyway. They were praying that they would bomb the railroad tracks leading to those camps, in order to prevent more people from coming and getting killed. So we cannot know. I mean, I cannot know. The other couple of things I just wanted to say is I was impressed that Trump actually showed some compassion. And I even though it may seem like an odd way to express the compassion by bombing something, I was impressed that he said, he saw these pictures of these children and his heart went out to them. And so I just want to say, wow, he's got a heart. There's something in there. It's nice to know. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, we're always watching the two ditches. So these things are so complex. You can, like you, I had this kind of glimmer of, wow, human being caring. That doesn't mean then you say it was a good idea. Then we still peel things apart, like, oh, he violated every international law in the world to do this. He didn't consult with Congress. Those are also truths. So we open and look at, we can rejoice in certain things and still open and look. We have to keep very broad minds. And people were interviewed in Syria, and some of them were so happy it happened, and some of them were utterly dismayed. And, this is the world of samsara. And again, I think this thing of what can we do? Go to your practice. Go to whatever is happening. My motivation towards Donald Trump, the generals, Assad, now try that one on. Mm-hmm. Compassion towards Assad. Mm-hmm. See, that's where the challenge always is. We have the bad guy, and we don't have compassion for that one. But as soon as we don't have compassion for someone in the situation, we have fallen out of our bodhisattva vow. It's okay, we do it, but we should notice, I've abandoned my bodhicitta. You leave one being out, you've abandoned your bodhicitta, your bodhi heart. So this is a tough road, and we're so fortunate we're on it. And we're so fortunate we're together. And we're so fortunate we have teachers who teach us this. This is just rare thinking in the world. You're not going to see it on the front pages, but you'll see it here. Our time is up.
I'm going to add one thing just about going towards the future. That Miriam's comment somehow reminded me that we can spend a lot of time, and it's worth spending some time, evaluating things that have happened and thinking about what might have been if something else was done differently. But in the end, what has happened has in fact happened. And if we spend too much time just declaring that the other side did it wrong and do not spend our more time actually in terms of thinking, how do we move from this point into something that is better, I think we miss something. Mm-hmm. And we can spend a lot of time looking backwards and essentially just justifying ourselves. So best always to take what has actually transpired and think, where do we go from here?
And think, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Where do I go?
Where do I go?
Okay, let's dedicate. Thank you so much for the questions. They're lovely.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Thank you. See you soon.
Certainty we develop in our practice. That's what allows us to act in the face of